Hello, everyone. So today my friend has some questions for me. I don't know what the questions are. They're just going to be off the fly, so this is going to be my genuine response. At any rate, thank you very much for joining me today, my brother from another mother. And go ahead, ask the questions.
Okay, should we show them the whiteboard?
Yeah,
So we
just
should-
go ahead and go with the whiteboard for a
let's,
second.
So we
Might
wrote-
have to get a little closer.
Sure. So we wrote some questions and basically
Topic ideas.
topic ideas. So basically, it's kind of about the message, the truth. Is it incorruptible? Is the qualities, nature of the truth?
So, if you had a first question, what is the first question?
So my question is, so everyone believes like they have a path, or they might not have identified a path yet to follow. So searching on this journey, you want to find the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in doing that, how do you determine, like, if the message is that the truth is incorruptible, and why is it incorruptible?
So, no matter what spiritual system or religion we're talking about, it's just different perspectives on the same thing we call the truth. I always go back to the old Hindu story I think it's a Hindu story, of you have these multiple blind brothers, you can say 4 or 5, and their father tells them, go and figure out what an elephant is, this elephant right here. So they all go up to different parts of the elephant. One grabs the leg, calls it a pillar. One grabs the tail, calls it a snake. One grabs the body, calls it a boulder, and so on and so forth. And neither one of these brothers are necessarily incorrect. They're just examining a certain part of this elephant. It's very similar with spirituality and religion. It's all about which angle, which perspective you have on the same thing we're trying to describe. This is why I believe that different paths, as far as religions or spirituality goes, are very similar. We're just approaching it from a different angle. We're all going towards the same source. This is kind of what influenced me. This general idea influenced me to be very Vedantic. It's a Hindu term for everything's a part of the same thing. Everything is one. It's only our level of consciousness that determines how we think of this grand oneness. If you're at a higher level of consciousness, you start to see things as being connected. If you're at a lower level of consciousness, and I'm not just talking about within humanity, but also within plants and animals, then you're going to see things as being different. At any rate, do you have another question?
Yeah. So okay. So there's so many different religions, so many different messages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you discern? Okay, there's ultimately, you believe that all these religions lead to a path to God, right?
Yeah, well, I call God the source.
So the source.
But yeah.
So all these paths lead to the source.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens then once you ultimately get to the source and then you realize that some of the information was incorrect?
Well,
because it can't be all true.
Okay, so you won't get to the source.
That's like saying
you won't get completely to the source
Right,
if some of your information is incorrect.
Right.
If you get completely to the source, basically you don't exist as a separate entity. Your ego is destroyed. You are melded into the grander Godhead. That there is a Godhead. Even if everything is one, just imagine the body of God being infinite, but all being one, and then you got the Godhead, which is also infinite, but it's really the consciousness of God that you meld into. So you will not. So if we're talking about immediate, like you get to a certain realm, a certain dimension, and then you're at a level to where you can actually communicate with Godhead, and some of your ideas are incorrect, and somehow you got there anyway. It won't be in religious terms. It'll be, okay, you got this wrong, but it wasn't. It's not going to be a fact like Jesus was my son, or the earth is corrupt and the realms beyond are not corrupt, or something like Satan is actually the one evil that counterbalances God. It's not Maya. These things are relationary terms that we adopt to try and understand the next level of our consciousness. it will never be you get to God and he's like, okay, you're wrong about this, this, and this as far as your beliefs. When you get to higher and higher levels of existence, religion fizzles away. Different spiritual paths kind of fizzle away, and there's just one path that you're trying to work towards. And it's not like any one religion or spirituality can describe it completely correctly here. It's all relationary terms. That's the best way I can describe it, because it's never. There's a big difference between Hindu ascetics and Catholic monks and Hindus and Catholic people. You'll find that Catholic monks and ascetics in India have way more in common than they do with people in their so-called own religion. And this is because once you get higher and higher, the truths become one. At any rate, go ahead with the next question.
So I think that this kind of ties into like frequency. Everything has a frequency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if everything has a frequency, then ultimately man is searching for, what are we searching for? Because I would say that like we want to escape death, right? Is that
We want to escape true death. I think that a lot of people equate physical death with true death, the fact that we will cease to exist. But that's just physical. A lot of people identify with physical body. Most people do. But when we start to realize our true body, our spiritual body, whether it be our astral body, our causal body, or our pure undiluted soul, we start to realize that death is not real. It's a human construct. But also, even if there's parts of us that die that will not move on, there's no point in holding on to them. And true immortality is the further expansion of one's soul connected to either the source, the gods, the spirits, whatever you might believe. I'm trying to be plural here. But it's always, the idea of immortality. We encounter this in, the first Chinese emperor obsessed with immortality. There was the first Japanese emperor obsessed with immortality. We had King Mithridates, which was very much interested in immortality, fought the Romans a lot. But anyway, they were very much obsessed with physical body immortality. It got them a little ways, but ultimately this body is going to die. And then what a lot of these people that are obsessed with immortality, even the famous ones that I mentioned, and there's plenty more people that we just don't know about, it comes down to the realization that this body will not last, but there's something of us that will last, and we have to allow it to flourish and bloom and develop regardless of this one physical identity dying. At any rate, go ahead with your...
Remember we were talking about, like, man by himself doesn't really make a good leader? Like
That's one quote that you said, yes.
Yeah, we look throughout history, we can never really see, like, anyone that was quantified as being a good leader. Like
that didn't believe in gods or God, or...
I mean, whether they believed in God or not. Like,
So you're saying just man in general is not a good leader?
Yeah.
So, okay, so...
Right, because if you take Christ, right, he really... I don't think he was considered man.
Well, just think about... Just think about people's... Okay, so whether different leaders believe in one religion or not, or atheists, just think about all the different interpretations. Most interpretations of...
Interpretations of
what either Christ said, of what Vishnu said, of what Buddha said. We have a lot of leaders that have different belief systems, and their interpretations is what brought them to where they are. So, the idea of man himself not being a good leader, it's very deceptive, I think, because even if somebody says they're guided by God, it's just their interpretation of God. Mm-hmm. It's not like God is speaking to them directly. So even if you said, okay, well, I'm guided by the Bible, here's my Bible, I'm guided by this, it's your interpretation of it. There are thousands of interpretations of the Bible. Thousands. So no matter whether you're atheist or religious or spiritual, it's going to be your interpretation of what is right. It's not going to be the essence of what is correct. It's not going to... Just because you believe in God doesn't mean that you are guided by him directly or her directly. That's the problem. Now, there's plenty of people that can be guided by God, but most of those people, the vast majority, we don't know of.
See, that's the thing. that I stumble on is that the message. What is the message of God? Because if there isn't a true message, that means, because if there's multiple interpretations, that means there's no true message, and that the truth has been.
It doesn't mean that any one of these interpretations are incorrect. It's just different. Like I said, there's different
perspectives.
Perspectives on the same truth.
Then again, that goes back to what I just said, that man is not really a good leader. We need somebody outside. And can you talk about like
who?
What do you mean? Well, let's just say, for example, like Babylon, right? Uh-huh. They were seeking communication with alien intelligence, right? That's
No. This is just a basic God and spiritual system. It wasn't an alien in essence. You might be talking about the Necronomicon, which came much later after the Book of Marduk, or perhaps at the same time, depending on who you ask. But so God speaks to people. Sure, I actually believe that God speaks to people, but their interpretation of what He says is what is key.
What's that?
God speaks to people. Their interpretation of what He says is key. Because if God speaks to you, then that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to understand Him. So even if God is leading you, that doesn't mean that you can understand His battle plans. You can picture God as general, I guess, and He gives you certain orders. He's like, okay, well, I should perform this way in my life and should take care of these people. But like He said, take care of the weak and poor. But who are the weak and poor? Who are the true poor people in this world? Are they the people
we know
that are, if they're the people that are materialistically poor, or the people that are poor spirit?
Oh, I see.
And so, there's different interpretations of just something basically like that.
I would say then just be aware of them both. That you would do, like, if you can't figure out who you need to take care of, then you would just encompass it, you would take care of the poor physically and then spiritually.
And how many people do that?
I don't see very many. My personal.
Exactly. So, and then a lot of the people. So there's a much higher amount of people who think that they are doing that, but they're actually not, because they're not all encompassing in their understanding. They're focusing on what they rather do as an individual, their own personal interpretation, or their religious leader's interpretation, depending.
You know what the problem is that we always expect somebody else. It's somebody else's responsibility. It's Joel Osteen's responsibility. It's
Joel Osteen, God, I hate that guy, man.
But that's what everyone thinks. It's it's not our.
And I think that's the pastor that closes doors to the homeless and people that were wrecked and troubled by the hurricane that hit Texas. He closes doors. All these people paying all this money to just go to church service, to actually get in, you pay money. And then when people need a place to stay because the hurricane hits, he closes his doors. So, obviously, this man does not have a good interpretation of what he says he knows about God. And obviously, whatever he told and he has this huge mansion, whatever he told his congregation, I feel like somebody like that does more harm than any Satanist to Christianity. But that's just that specific topic. I guess in closing, do you have any one closing question we can tie this up with?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it's this one was a tough topic because if you look at different religions and you try to find a path, okay, there's a lot of resistance, and so I think ultimately everybody wants to know what's after death, right? Life after death.
I feel like I already know.
Okay, I mean, because what's the purpose? You live, so what's the purpose of living? Is it like a reward system where you do good deeds and then you go to heaven, or is it just an experience that we experience? Just to get, and it's doesn't matter what you do, it's just you get this experience so that you can say in the afterworld or afterlife, it's just to differentiate between life and death.
I believe in reincarnation, I believe in karma, and I believe that we achieve higher dimensions of existence only by acting kindly on this earth. Kindness is all that you need. If you're kind to everything and yourself, kind of plants, animals, people, and yourself, then you will just naturally rise up into higher dimensions.
So that's weird because if you're kind, right? But let's say you have like a fault, like for example, you're a thief, right?
There's not a whole lot of kind thieves, but yeah.
Well, no, there could be, right? You could be a thief and then you steal like
Robin Hood.
like Robin, right?
I can dig it. Yeah.
So that's weird. Like you on there's two sides of the coin. You can be a thief or a liar, but never. I mean, the point of it is all. It doesn't matter as long as you're kind. That's kind of hard to. That's kind of a hard.
I don't think
to follow.
I don't think you can be a kind thief unless you're like Robin Hood and you're taking from the rich and giving to the poor because the poor need it more.
That goes back to the point that I was trying to make is that, man, again, we never make good leaders.
Okay, so who should lead us?
I mean, I don't know. I think that we should probably do a second video on this.
Sure, that sounds good.
All
right, so hey, thank you very much everybody for watching. If you like this video, I'll hit that thumbs up down there. I greatly appreciate it. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, shoot them down in the comment section below on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you find clarity for yourselves.